Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. There's more chaos on the campus of Columbia University. Dozens of anti-Israel agitators were arrested after storming the Columbia University library, taking control of the building during final exams. A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to immediately resettle some 12,000 refugees into the U.S. under a court order that partially blocks the president's executive order aimed at halting the refugee admissions program. And during a Tennessee Highway Patrol operation in coordination with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, authorities say nearly 100 people were detained, including a convicted child predator and known gang members from Mexico. The South Carolina House of Representatives passed a bill that will cut taxes for about 42% of workers. We have the latest on this last-minute tax bill and whether or not it has a chance of being passed.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
More than 100 masked anti-Israel agitators stormed the Butler Library at Columbia University in New York City yesterday. They pushed past campus security as students were preparing for final exams. This was in response to, of course, there's been ongoing unrest on this university campus for, 2 years now. University officials summons the NYPD to restore order. At least 30 people were arrested. More expected to be arrested. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is also monitoring the situation, planning to fingerprint arrestees to determine non-citizen status. Now, the protest, which disrupted students, it forced some to evacuate the library, was reportedly in support of Mahmoud Khalil. Now, this is the Columbia graduate, previously arrested by Homeland Security and detained in Louisiana for alleged immigration violations. Flyers posted by demonstrators renamed the library the Basil al-Araj Popular University and claimed it is a liberation zone. Now, what is wrong with this picture? You've got, I guess, students, although there's no guarantee that a lot of these were actually students. You may recall that when the protest, last year at Columbia University, which has led to them losing about $400 million of their federal grants, it was later determined that a lot of the protesters last year were not even students. Students who were there described chaos in the library, including protesters climbing on desks and chanting pro-Palestinian slogans. Columbia acting president Claire Shipman stated that 2 university public safety officers were injured during this crowd surge. Shipman emphasized that those involved were repeatedly warned of the consequences, including arrest for trespassing. New York City Mayor Eric Adams also urged non-students to leave the campus and warned that lawbreakers would be arrested. Well, I would hope so. I would hope that should go without being said. Columbia reiterated that disruptions to campus activities would not be tolerated and that violators would face disciplinary consequences. Again, that's on the assumption they're students. I got a feeling that there were probably a lot of these who were not students. Wonder if they'll use the resources and spend the time to try to go back and look at video and determine exactly who all these people are, like they did for the J6ers. The State Department issued a warning to foreign students, stating that those who break the law or support terrorism risk visa revocation. Look, it should be automatic. If they are caught, if someone is caught heading up this type of organized disruption at a university, they should immediately be deported. Revoke their visa, send them back home to mama and daddy. ICE echoed this sentiment, saying that it was time to make a point. Look, I don't think these kids want Tom Holman to make an example out of them. Do you? The incident follows months of tension, protest on a lot of campuses, particularly Columbia's campus. Again, last year, similar demonstrations culminated in students seizing Hamilton Hall at the time. It resulted in over 200 arrests. In March, the Trump administration canceled $400 million in federal grants to Columbia over its, quote, failure to protect Jewish students from anti-Semitic harassment. In an effort to restore funding, the university agreed to new security measures and administrative oversight. But boy, they let things get out of control on this one, didn't they? They've got to make an example out of these kids. They've got to make it very clear that if you do this type of thing, then you're going to be sent home. Period. You're going to be kicked out of school. It's one thing to make up some signs and march around campus in protest. It's another when you take over a building like this. Columbia University announced potential layoffs of 180 staff members on Tuesday of this week. They said that this was tied to the termination of federal grants. President Shipman explained the need for financial flexibility and acknowledged that the hardships the cuts would bring to a lot of people. Look, if you had control of your school rather than letting it get to the point it's in now, you wouldn't have lost your federal funding. I don't know that you're going to get it back, not anytime soon, and not especially after this type of disruption. Republican leaders have praised President Trump and his administrations for the tough stance. Representative Lee Stefanik called for an end to taxpayer funding for institutions tolerating chaos and anti-Semitism. Now, this was before yesterday. I'm sure she will definitely be calling for some investigations on this. Now, some Democrats have faced criticism for calling for investigations rather than immediate accountability. Columbia continues to face scrutiny over the rise in anti-Semitic incidents and its handling of campus protests. People are tired of this, and people are especially tired of this of institutions like this who get federal dollars. University officials maintain that while they support free expression, protests must comply with campus policies to ensure the safety and function of academic life. Well, I wonder if the powers that be at Columbia University believe that yesterday's protest adhere to these policies, the policies that they say ensure the safety and function of academic life. I don't know how you could say that it was safe for those students who are in this library just simply studying for final exams so they can finish up the school year and have the summer off. And suddenly this bunch of thugs come storming into the building, jumping on top of the desk and creating chaos. I don't know that I would feel safe with that. Wow. Look, let's just pack them all up, load them up on a military aircraft. They're so fond of the Palestinians. Let's load them up, give them a free flight to Gaza. Just drop them off in Gaza. Let them be there with Hamas and the Palestinians and do whatever they want to do. That's fair, don't you think? Don't you think they should be able to see what they're protesting about? Wonder what their attitude would be like then. Wonder how their attitude would be if, in fact, we were to say, okay, folks, we're going to give you a free trip to see firsthand what you're protesting about. Send me a text. Email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. You think this is a good idea? Wow. I just, it is crazy. Coming up, you're not going to believe this next one. This is a real doozy from the federal bench. A federal judge, handpicked by Joe Biden, in just a couple of years, he's been on the bench since like 2023, I think, has decided that he runs America's immigration policy now. Judge Whitehead is his name, Jamal Whitehead. He ordered the Trump administration to immediately resettle 12,000 refugees into the United States. 12,000. He's telling the Trump administration, you got to do this. You got to offer them shelter. Wow. We're going to jump into that coming up next. Are you ready for this? I dropped over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan. No Ozempic, no shots, no meds. Look, I refuse to rely on prescriptions for life, and you probably feel the same. Joey Hudson here. Here's what Big Pharma won't tell you. Your body already makes GLP-1. That's the hormone that fights hunger. PhD helps your body produce it naturally, faster, and without side effects. With PhD, there's no muscle loss, no rebound weight gain, and no cravings. Just real, lasting weight loss the natural way. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. It takes 5 minutes and shows what's really happening inside your body. You'll walk out knowing how to flip your fat-burning switch. No shots needed. Don't trade your health for a quick fix. You can do this without Big Pharma and without the drugs. Plus 15% off when you fully commit to your program and the PhD Get Results Guarantee. Call now 864-644-1900. Start today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. All right, folks, this next one is a doozy from the federal bench. And I know every time something like this comes up, we think, well, it can't get any worse. Jamal Whitehead is a federal judge who was handpicked by Joe Biden just a couple of years ago and has decided that he's going to run America's immigration policy. Let me say again, a Biden-appointed judge, in defiance of an executive order by Donald Trump, is trying to force this administration to throw open the doors and resume refugee admissions en masse. In this case, 12,000 refugees. And at a time when our borders are under siege and our national security concerns are through the roof. And we've got millions of people here that Joe Biden let in that we're trying to deport, send them back home. And other federal judges, just like this guy, won't let the Trump administration do it. It's a fight every day. Judge Whitehead wrote, and I quote, "This court will not entertain the government's result-oriented rewriting of a judicial order." Oh, really, Your Honor? Huh. You mean like the judiciary rewriting the Constitution to micromanage immigration and override the commander-in-chief? Is that what you're talking about? This is the same judge who, back in February, had already blocked President Trump's executive order to pause refugee admissions while DHS conducts a full security review. The goal? Protect the American people and ensure our refugees pipeline isn't being used by bad actors. It's just that simple. But no. The bench disagrees. According to Judge Whitehouse, Trump's actions are nothing more than an effective nullification of congressional will. Now, I've got news for the judge. Congress didn't vote to rubber stamp every single refugee claim. Congress gave the executive branch the authority to set caps and implement policy in the interest of our very own national security. That should be what comes first. Our national security, what's best for our country above and beyond anything. Period. End of sentence. Full stop. You want to talk about nullifying congressional will? How about a court that ignores federal statutes and forces refugee admissions during a presidential review? And here's the kicker. Judge Whitehead ordered that the U.S. start processing these 12,000 refugees cases within 7 days, immediately. That's right. No time for proper vetting. No time for updating expired medical or security clearances. Just get them on a plane, bring them in, and turn them loose. Because apparently the court said so. So let me ask the obvious. Who's running the country? Who is running our country? Did we elect Judge Whitehead to run our country, to to oversee our immigration? Because if we're going to let one judge override national security concerns, if we're going to let a judge ignore the executive branch's constitutional authority, if we're going to let a judge tell the DHS how many people to admit into the country, that's not a balance of power. That's a rogue judiciary acting like a super legislature. And if you don't already recognize this, the real danger, it's not about immigration. It's about precedent. It's about how one judge can handcuff a president from executing the very laws he was elected to uphold. You remember what Chuck Schumer said? Elections have consequences? Yes. Unless you're a federal judge appointed by the other party, apparently. I guess there are no consequences for them. They can do whatever they want to. Are you tired of this, like I am? It's like every day there's a new case, a new instance of a federal judge, in most cases appointed by a Democrat. A lot of cases, Joe Biden or Barack Obama. Some of Bill Clinton's. Well, the Trump administration is expected to appeal, of course, and they should, because this needs to go up to the Supreme Court pronto, quickly, as in like tomorrow. Because we're either going to have a republic led by the people's elected leaders or a system ruled by unelected, unaccountable activist judges. Now, you tell me which you want. You tell me what you prefer. Now, don't let the media spin this into a humanitarian fairy tale. These aren't refugees who were denied food and shelter. These are individuals waiting in line during a lawful pause while our government reviews security risk and evaluates the process. If anything, this ruling is putting the cart before the horse, and national safety be damned. Just forget about it. Bottom line, we've got a president who is trying his best to protect our homeland, which we haven't been concerned about, or our president hasn't been concerned about in 4 years. Joe Biden didn't care who he let in, and that is evident by some of the people that we're finding now and trying to deport. Like the story out of Tennessee where they apprehended about 100 just in the last few days, some of them being rapists, for example. And they're just running free in our country because Joe Biden opened his arms and let them in. And now we have this judge trying to play global social worker. That's the headline. And it's why next year's election and 2028 election, I know, look, we just finished an election, but we got to start working for next year and then for 2028, because every seat in the U.S. Congress, in the U.S. Senate, local levels, we got to keep control over the Congress so that we can appoint federal judges to eventually take over this rabid judiciary that we have now. You with me? You agree? Email me. Text me. joey@joeyhudson.com. Black smoke billowed from the Sistine Chapel yesterday after the first round of voting by the College of Cardinals, indicating that there's no consensus on a new pope, as all eyes are on the Cardinals. The 133 voting Cardinals have been sequestered inside the historic chapel since Wednesday evening, tasked with casting secret ballots to choose a successor to Pope Francis. He died, of course, April 21st of a stroke and heart failure. If no cardinal receives 2/3 of the vote, the ballots are burned with a chemical additive that produces black smoke, which signals to the outside world that the next pope has not been chosen yet. 89 cardinals must agree before a new pope can be named. And when the cardinals reach a consensus, the ballots are burned with a different type of chemical agent that then turns the smoke white. And we know then that we have a new pope. After the white smoke goes through the chimney, the newly elected pontiff will put on the traditional white vestments for the first time before making his debut from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. The new pope's name will also be announced at that time. So still watching. The conclave typically goes through several rounds of votes before a front-runner emerges. However, in recent history, the voting process has come to a conclusion fairly quickly. The last 10 conclaves took an average of 3.2 days, and the late Pope Francis was elected after just 2 days in 2013. So we shall see. Speaking of chaos in the nation's capital, grab your coffee and brace yourself. Yesterday's congressional hearing on protecting women's sports, or at least that's what it should have been about, turned into a full-blown circus, thanks to the left's inability to define basic biology and their obsession with identity politics. I watched parts of this, and I'm sitting there in just disbelief at some of these idiots and what they talk about, and the fact that they still can't give the definition of a woman. After what? Years now of us talking about this, and they have to know that when they go before a congressional committee chaired by Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're going to be asked that, right? And when you have Nancy Mace on there, they should know they're going to be asked that. It was the Subcommittee on Government Efficiency, DOGE. And I'll tell you what, it was anything but efficient. Marjorie Taylor Greene was chairing. God bless her. She was trying to keep the room in order, but it was described as being like herding cats hopped up on Red Bull. I saw somebody wrote that. All right, so let's start with the opening statement from Fatima Goss Graves, a lady who claims to be fighting for equality for women in sports, yet she argues that trans women deserve to be playing in women's sports. Here's her statement.
Committee, my name is Fatima Goss Graves, and I'm president and CEO at the National Women's Law Center. We've been around since 1972, when Title IX was first enacted, and we've been working to create equal opportunity for women and girls in sports and in society ever since. Women and girls face many obstacles to equal opportunity in sports: fewer financial resources than men's programs, worse facilities, endemic sexual abuse, and student athletes facing these persistent inequities are among the more than 12,000 people who have complained about discrimination in school, but who actually really can't pursue justice because the Trump administration has laid off half the staff whose jobs at the Department of Education it was to respond to these complaints. Students, including disabled kids, survivors of campus sexual assault, and other forms of discrimination, are now basically in a situation where their complaints are being warehoused. So, for over 50 years, the National Women's Law Center has been fighting for equality and will continue to fight until every girl has the same chance to play as everyone else. And as an expert on women's rights in sports and in society, I want to be clear here. Transgender women do not pose a threat to women's sports. Transgender women belong in sports. And I'm here because I care about all women and girls in sport. And I know that bullying trans kids and creating panic about the existence of trans people will not make us safer. It won't solve any of the problems that I named about inequity in sports. And the fixation on harming trans kids, it will not fix the problems of the American people.
Okay, so help me out here. How can she sit there with a straight face and say that she has been fighting for equality in women's sports, fighting for the right for young women to be able to play in sports, and in the same sentence say that young men deserve to be playing in women's sports as well? How does she do that and expect people to take her seriously? If anyone who has been a supporter, I'm assuming this is a nonprofit type of organization. I hope they don't receive any type of federal funds. If they do, I hope Trump cancels them right away. But I'm assuming they operate on donations. People should stop supporting this group immediately. Now, let's get back to the testimony. Front and center, none other than Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina. And let me tell you, she came loaded for bear. She looks across the witness table at Fatima Goss Graves. That's, again, the CEO of the National Women's Law Center, which now apparently can't even define the word woman, and Nancy hits her with the most basic question on earth: what is a woman? You'd think that would be a layup, right? But no. Goss Graves goes into this rambling mess about categories of identity and self-perception. Meanwhile, Mace, who's clearly had enough, starts cutting in, calling out the insanity, saying, you sound like a lunatic. And folks, I couldn't agree more. Here's the exchange.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the invitation to participate in today's hearing. Ms. Goss Graves, so-called, quote, expert in women's rights. Do you know how many years it took South Carolina to elect its first Republican woman to Congress?
Well, what year did
100 years since women got the right to vote. Do you know how many years it took the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, to graduate its first woman?
Well,
157 years. So I have a series of yes or no questions I would like to ask you based on some of your previous statements. In your opening statement today, you said trans women are women. Ms. Goss Graves, what is a woman?
So a woman is an adult female. A woman identifies as a woman, and I actually think it is.
What do you consider a female? What is a female?
So there are some women who were assigned a female.
You say you're here to defend women. You say you're here to defend women, but shouldn't you be able to define one? Shouldn't you be able to define one if you're for women's rights?
That's literally what
Ms. Goss.
That is the CEO of the National Women's Law Center, and she can't give the definition of a woman. They weren't finished. Then Marjorie Taylor Greene turns to Damian Lefelt, the USA fencing chairman, who actually penalized a female athlete for refusing to compete a biological male just a month or so ago. Remember this? Chairwoman Greene asked him if he thinks his daughter should be forced to change clothes in the women's locker room in front of a male.
Mr. Lefelt, do you think forcing a woman to change in front of a man in a locker room is abusive? Yes or no?
Congresswoman, I'm not sure I
Do
follow
you
the
want
question.
your daughter to change in front of biological men in locker rooms? Yes or no?
My daughter isn't really something that should be part of this hearing, respectfully.
If you're not a quick no on that, we're going to take that as a no.
He doesn't understand the question. It was pretty simple. Do you think men should be changing clothes in women's locker room? Would you want your daughter to be in a locker room with a male changing clothes in front of her? Basic question. But he wants to pretend like he didn't understand it. And that's how the left is. Now, they couldn't handle this. Up jumps Representative Melanie Stansbury from New Mexico, giving a very passionate monologue on how we all need to stand with the trans community. Which, fine, if you want to be compassionate, great. But she refused to yield when her time was up. Chairwoman Greene had to bang the gavel, and I kid you not, about 30 times to get her back in order, saying the hearing will come to order over and over, while Ms. Stansbury just kept going on like she was on MSNBC or something. And it didn't stop there. Texas Democrat Jasmine Crockett, talk about an idiot. And I don't want to be disrespectful to any member of Congress, but this lady has no clue of where she is. She tried to turn the hearing into a game show. I'm not joking. She called it Trump or Trans. And then she asked a witness to blame either Trump or transgender people for everything from inflation to constitutional violations. Predictably, the answer was Trump every time. 12 out of 12. It was beyond parody. It was beyond embarrassing that these are actually members of the United States House of Representatives. And they weren't finished. You had Representative Latifah Simon from California who went full race card. She actually compared protecting women's sports to segregation in the 1950s. I kid you not. I mean, really, you can't make this stuff up, folks. According to her, if we don't let biological males compete against women, we're somehow reenacting Jim Crow. If you can explain that one to me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Text me. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. Just leave me a quick message on how in the world we're reenacting Jim Crow. What does Jim Crow have anything to do with women's sports and protecting women's sports? I'm at a loss. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On the text line, Faye writes, "Hey, Joey, it's hard to hear folks bashing President Trump." I agree with that, Faye. "These ignorants don't understand how close we were to being involved in one world government, and they would really have a reason to scream. The stories of how illegals are attacking our citizens make for nightmares, and they must be sent out of our country. They're costing a fortune, and if Congress doesn't make President Trump's executive orders law, then we need to clean house there. And Joey, wish your mom a happy Mother's Day." Well, thank you, Faye. I will certainly let Nana Hudson know that Faye says happy Mother's Day. This next one. I like your program, but you need to work on your English pronunciation. Okay. Example. Nazi is Nazi. Okay. All right. Sheriff Villanova, not Villanueva. Well, it's spelled Nuenva, I think it is. Tren de Aragua, you really destroyed that one. Laugh out loud. Well, thank you. I appreciate you keeping me straight. Okay. The South Carolina House passed its income tax reform bill that advocates say sets the state on course for an eventual flat 1.99% rate for most taxpayers. With only hours left in the 2025 session, they wrap things up today at 5 o'clock, actually. The Senate is highly unlikely to take up the bill now, we're told, which leaves its fate to next year. Now, this is year one of a 2-year session, so the bill doesn't die. It's there, ready for them to take up when they go back to Columbia in January. If it does become law in 2026, some 42% of earners, we're told, could see a tax cut as soon as 2027, while roughly one-third will see no change at all. Now, this is a bit different than the bill that was rolled out a few weeks ago to much fanfare, and we learned that, 66% of people were going to pay more. This was a tax cut bill, and over half of South Carolinians were going to end up paying more tax. Wasn't really a tax cut, was it? Republicans in the House have praised the move as a comprehensive and historic shift that will move towards an eventual 0% income tax and break off from what I've referred to as being dictated by the federal government. I will believe it when I see it. I will believe it when we get to a 0% income tax. I don't think it will happen. Maybe. I hope they prove me wrong. The cut was a top legislative priority this session. Heard a lot about it heading into the session. One of the so-called pillars of success targets that was rolled out by the GOP before the start of the session when they were listing their priorities for this year. Critics countered that the move was rushed after Republicans deviated from their original plan due to a wave of early condemnations that would punish two-thirds of earners and reward the wealthy. And that's exactly what the first version of the bill was going to do. The bill House lawmakers passed late yesterday will shift the state to a two-tiered income tax system compared to the state's current 3 tiers. That would eventually set the state on the road to a flat 1.99% rate. With the idea, some are saying, They want to eliminate that 1.99 eventually. Under the mathematical formula, the first $30,000 in your taxable income will be taxed at a rate of 1.99, and every dollar after will be taxed at a rate of 5.39%. The top rate will be reduced by approximately 0.2% each year. The state sees a 5% increase in tax revenues, assuming the state's population and economy continue growing at current rates. You got that? You follow? Couldn't make it simple, could they? The bill that passed in the last hours of this year was, again, a very different bill than the one that was originally rolled out. And boy, did the GOP face an onslaught of a backlash after they introduced the version that would raise taxes for 2/3 of South Carolinians. That was a disaster. And I think it caught everybody by surprise. They had no idea what they had rolled out. And this is part of the legislative process. Quite often, well, maybe I shouldn't say quite often. Sometimes they don't recognize what a certain bill, what the ramifications of the bill will be. Our current tax system has been criticized for the weight that it places on the state's highest earners, who bear the brunt of public service costs compared to others. The original plan, again, rolled out by Republicans, slashed the three-tier system to an initial single flat rate of 3.99 rather than the 1.99 that passed yesterday. And that's when the fiscal analysis of the original bill showed that it was actually going to harm middle and lower wage earners in South Carolina with hundreds of dollars in extra taxes. Because what you have to understand is there are a lot of people who pay zero income taxes already in the lower wages. And that's okay. They probably shouldn't be paying income taxes. Republicans, of course, reworked the legislation. The new version was still met with some criticism by the Freedom Caucus, for example. I noticed when I saw the board, the votes go up, a lot of Freedom Caucus members did not vote in favor of it. None of the Democrats did either, I don't think. That they both pushed to just lower the tax rate altogether. Freedom Caucus Chairman Representative Jordan Pace, who's been on the show before, went back and forth with Representative Brandon Newton, asking what group of earners would see a 24.8% increase in their taxes. Newton said the state generally knows who the 24.8% is, but it will vary. The increases will likely be for six-figure wage earners and lower income tax earners. The increase would be modest, they said, about less than $50 for earners taking in less than $30,000 a year. Newton told Pace, because we're getting off this federal system, there's no typical taxpayer. I don't want to be overly specific because there is a generalization to it. Yeah, you don't want to be overly specific because I'm afraid you just don't know. The proposal, according to reports, would cut hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue from the state's budget, placing the cost of essential services on the hope that the state will see continued growth in corporate income taxes and sales taxes, not to mention property taxes. Representative Justin Bamberg offered an amendment to immediately take the state income tax to zero. That failed. Newton said that would be a 40% deduction in the state budget in 1 year. Everyone could take a prisoner home at night because we wouldn't be able to house them in the Department of Corrections. Maybe it's being a little dramatic, but Vice Chair of the Freedom Caucus, Representative April Cromer from Anderson, posed amending the bill to cut out wasteful spending in the budget to get the tax to zero. And see, that's the real problem there. And all of the discussion about cutting taxes, which I'm all for, we need to. There has been no discussion about cutting spending because we could get to zero income tax if spending would be cut. Because, you know, the criticism of going to a zero tax right now is, well, it's going to cut millions of dollars out of the budget. Well, why don't we cut millions of dollars of spending to offset that? Newton said, it is completely false to say you're overtaxing someone simply because the revenue from one year is greater than the other. He said, adding draconian cuts will lead to deep holes in public services. There's got to be some waste somewhere, and this is where we need the South Carolina Doge to come in and do like Elon Musk has done at the federal level, come in and identify where those cuts could be, because I got a feeling, in fact, I'm almost certain they're there. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.